This week on the Rockstar Radicals podcast. Ed Rush is a decorated Marine Corps F-18 pilot. At the height of his career, he was the #1 instructor in the Marine Corps for one-against-one dogfighting and was instrumental in the training development for the new F-35 Lightning. Ed has flown over 2,000 tactical aircraft hours. He was awarded an Air Medal, for God's sake. This is my friend. What an incredible man. Ed is a 5-time #1 best-selling author. He's internationally recognized as a speaker. He's an advisor to the elite businesses in the world. Ed is extraordinary. Because of our limited time frame today and Ed's schedules, hey, he's a busy guy, we really weren't able to dive deep into his family history. But I suspect Ed was raised with extraordinary morals, ethics, and a belief that mankind deserves more. There's a lot ticking inside of this man. So let's just jump right into the thick of it. This is my interview with one of my favorite superheroes, Ed Rush, on the Rockstar Radicals podcast. Well, welcome, my friends. This is Ed Rush. This is one of my favorite new friends, a mega cool guy. Like I just said, a friend, 5-time best-selling author, a trusted elite strategist. That's what I call him anyway. A business coach, and dare I say, future media mogul. You are one busy man, Ed Rush. How are you today?
That's awesome, Rob. Listen, I was I've been thinking about you all week because last week, I let a little bit of this grow, like I just did, and I called it my Rob Jones starter set. It got about a millimeter down, and then I shaved it again. So I couldn't even aspire, So.
Oh, well, I mean, this because you've been watching me for a year. My goatee has definitely shortened itself as well. I mean, there's times when I'm playing with it at night, and I just can't take it. I can't sleep. So I got to handle it,
man. If you ever get rid of it, people are gonna be like, "Who's that guy?" I don't know.
Yeah. So who is Rob Jones? But you know what? To start with a little fun, we have very limited time today, and I mean, we have to be fair to that. And I want to honor your schedule. But I heard one of your shows this morning, actually, and you mentioned goals, and a few of them were pretty great and surprising, and maybe even a little madcap, right? One was that you wanted to be president someday. I think that's an easy one, and we could talk a little bit about that. The others were that you wanted to live to 124 years old.
144.
Yeah, 144. Okay,
yeah.
So I understand it now, because I was like 124. I didn't get that, but now I do. And what I wanted to know is why do you want to colonize another planet, or did I miss that one too?
No, you got it. That's you got it all. Wow, you were paying attention. So for some context, Rob and I are recording this right after I do a live show twice a week on YouTube. And a little background, by the way, I was an F-18 fighter pilot in the Marine Corps, flew into combat a few times, went on and off aircraft carriers, and then I ended up as an entrepreneur teaching amazing people like you how to make more money, have a bigger impact, and take more time off. As a part of that process, I wrote a book. I'm working on my next book, and today on my show, I was talking about goals. And what I was telling people was there's a set of goals that are sort of this normal set of goals: make more money, lose weight, get in better shape. Great goals, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it takes a normal approach to accomplish those goals. And then there are goals that are impossible, or I put impossible in quotes because they're not really impossible. But my litmus test is you should have at least 3 goals that when you say them, people laugh. Okay, so one of my goals is I want to be president. Now, when I say that, people don't laugh because they're like, yeah, I mean, like somebody's got to be president. But I would say, and I'm not going to be a Republican or a Democrat. And people are like, wait a second. Well, that's impossible. And I've had like some of the most influential people in the Beltway in Washington, people whose names, if I mentioned in all the camps, would be like, oh, for real? You had dinner with him? Who have said, yeah, that's impossible. I've had family members tell me that's impossible. For me, that's motivation more than anything. So that's one of my goals. One of my goals is I want to live to be 144 years old. That goal came out of when I was 44, which wasn't that long ago. When I was 44, I started to feel like, gosh, man, I'm like running out of time, which is a total lie, by the way. And I started feeling like I wasn't accomplishing enough, which is also a lie. You have to be aware of things that go through your head. So I said, all right, I'm 44. I'm just going to live another 100 years because I know I can get a lot done in 100 years. So I set a goal to live to 144. And when I did that, most of the people I told the goal to, they laughed. They thought I was joking, actually. And then I was talking to one of my clients who's a regenerative health doctor who's a very influential in the anti-aging space. And he said, oh, no, that could totally help you do that. And we started talking about DNA and like regenerating DNA. I mean, it was amazing, the conversation. And you realize, well, there's people like working this problem, right?
Yeah.
And then the third one was, I want to be influential in colonizing a planet. And the short version of that is I was sitting in my little chair talking to God like I do in the morning. And God said, what do you want? I said, well, I want to be influential in changing the country. And he said, nah, that's too small. I said, well, okay, I want to be influential in changing the world. He said, no, it's too small. I said, well, what's bigger than the world? The solar system. I said, I want to be influential in changing the solar system because we're having this little game, God and I. And he goes, no, that's too small. I said, too small? All right, the galaxy. And he goes, all right, let's start there. And I actually sat in my chair. I said, okay, so if I was going to change the galaxy, what would I do? I said, I would colonize a planet. That's what I would do. So I started imagining, like, if I got to the planet, what would I do? How would I teach the next generation? What laws would we have? What would be the, how would you make sure that things were free, but also, in good order? Like people didn't hurt each other. How would you instill kindness and love and empathy in a new colony? And how would you take care of a new world? And I started thinking of all those things. And then when I realized, I'm like, I figured out how to colonize a planet. I just realized the whole country thing is not that big of a deal. So what God was actually teaching me, Rob, wasn't the thing about colonizing the planet. The thing was, if you think about big things, the real actual things actually become small things. Like, oh, so wait, losing 10 pounds is no big deal. I'm going to colonize a planet and live to 144. Then that should make it really easy. So it's a way to train your mind. I call it heavy bat dreaming, where you like, ever seen a Major League Baseball player swing a heavy bat? They do that because it makes the bat feel smaller, or lighter. And so there's a way to train your brain so that you can accomplish really, really big things with the right kind of thinking.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. It actually ties into the next question, which actually goes to the book that I met you through.
Yeah,
right?
baby.
Which is a very
21-day miracle. Boom.
That's right. 21-day miracle. Look at you go.
I always have a copy of it right here on my
That's fantastic. I read that book. I read it twice. I bought 3 more copies for my friends. I bought Audible for my friends. I was floored by this. And I'm a collector of books. You're not going to really see it off to the side here, but I have a lot of books. And I honestly, I'm looking for authors to provide kind of a panacea. I think most people are. They don't want to admit it, but I think they are. But of your books, that was just, it hit me square in the gut. And it's because I have a former military experience too. Now, I didn't fly jets. I think that is fantastic. And thank you for sharing that. I was going to get to that, but thank you for pounding it out. But the thing that it absolutely reminded me of was my time in the service when I was on a submarine. And I remember I showed up on day 1 and they sat me down behind a steering wheel of a 565-foot long thing.
That's cool.
In the water, and expected me to drive it, and not having a clue, but listening to the chief of the boat, listening to the officer of the watch, and learning that process with men's lives at stake on day 1 is an extraordinary thing. And the military really seems to pound that in. So what I loved about the book is it was clear, it was concise. And again, it reminded me of my own military experiences, But what I want to know is where was the trigger point for you to say, okay, this is a concept that's a winner and I need to share this ASAP because half the world is missing out?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing about, the book, the 21-Day Miracle book, and if you're listening to this on audio, I held this book up. We're recording this on video. I've always have it on my desk, as like a reference, I guess. No, I've read it a few times too. So when the principle of the book is really simple, the most successful people around, most successful people in the world build their lives around strategic sprints. In fact, if you look at nature, everything in nature operates off of one or two settings, and only one of two settings. There's either sprint or rest. So for example, I'm looking right out my window right now at this beautiful garden that my wife has created in our front yard. And in the garden, we have these tomato plants. Well, those tomato plants right now are pretty dormant, but you know what? Pretty soon they're going to start growing tomatoes. And man, when those tomatoes start growing, they grow fast. I have some teenagers in my house. I have a 15-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and a 2-year-old, by the way, across the board. And man, when those kids grow, they grow fast, and then they sort of like, their bodies sort of like hang out at a certain size for a little while, and they fill out, and then they grow again. And so like everything in nature, from teens to tomatoes, operates on this principle of sprint and rest. My philosophy, however, is that most of the time structure that most entrepreneurs give themselves is too much. So this book, 21 Day Miracle, went from idea to best-selling book in 21 days. Actually, it was 20 days, but that was the goal, was to be able to write, publish, and launch a book to bestseller in a short period of time, just to prove the process. Most authors, for example, think it takes 3 years, in the woods next to the lake, like Walden Pond or whatever, to like write your
Stephen
book.
King.
Yeah, like in reality, like it may have taken you years to develop the ideas that are going to be in your book, but like the book process shouldn't take that long, nor should launching a website, nor should launching a brand, nor should launching a show, nor should, building a list or any of those things that you're required to do in business. And what I realized is when I was in the military, so like I started out in civilian flight training, and civilian flight training is great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some great pilots and great instructors out there, but it takes forever. Because it's kind of like whenever you feel like doing it, you just show up, and like whenever you feel like studying, you just show up. Well, like when I went through the Navy's flight training, which all Marines do, it's no joke, Rob. It's for real. Like you don't just show up when you want to, And so I went from not knowing anything to soloing an airplane, a high performance airplane, in about 3 weeks. So I'm talking like upside down, using my instruments, 2 different radios. And I couldn't even land 3 weeks before. And I realized, I'm like, not only did I learn how to do that in 3 weeks, but everybody learned how to do it in 3 weeks. I'm talking like good pilots, the bad pilots, and everybody in between. And the reason we did is because, well, that's what was expected of us. And I think it's amazing when you have an expectation, what you can get out of a human being,
Yes.
And so I just decided, okay, I'm not in the military anymore, and I don't have a drill instructor or a flight instructor. I just decided to create that for myself so that I could fuel the kind of goals that I wanted to accomplish, and essentially compress greatness into a period of time. And then on the other side, I do a lot of resting too, man. I take a lot of time off. I do a lot of hikes and walks and time with my family, and I go to the park a lot. And those two things really flow in a nice whole entrepreneur's life really, really well.
That's amazing. I love, you're such an intense, and I mean this in the best way. You're such an intense on guy, and I imagine you're very off when you're away. You really know how to sort of compartmentalize when you need to be on and when you need to be off. Is that correct?
Well, by the way, one of the fastest ways to do that, so this is my phone right here.
Yeah.
It's off. I would say it's on airplane mode as much as it's on. First of all, I usually turn it off about 5 or 6 at night. I usually turn it on about 8 or 9 in the morning. I don't have it on my experience is, like, dude, you and I grew up when the phone was on the wall,
Yeah.
And like, we used to go out with our parents, and like we'd go to pizza, and then we'd go bowling, and then we'd come home, and there were some messages, but it wasn't like you had to act on those messages. One was from like grandma, the other one was like from the guy down the street who was wondering why the dog was barking or whatever. My point was, like, we live in this world where we feel like compelled, like in the moment, but like you see, I was just talking about bowling, right? So like we go to, my wife and I take our kids up to Mammoth quite a bit, and there's a bowling alley we love to go to, and like you see the dad over there, like like what do you need to do on a Tuesday afternoon, when you're with your kids, what that the office can't wait for,
Right.
And so I find just having it off is really helpful. In fact, when I used to do a lot more client work than I do now, I used to have another phone, a completely other phone. So like I would have this on during work, and then I would shut it off, and I would take my other phone, So like when we went to Disneyland, I could like, like text my wife and be like, I'm over at the Space Mountain. So I had a way to communicate with her, but nobody else had that other phone. So sometimes there's just some technological things that you can do, but you would be amazed. I tell entrepreneurs, look, turn your phone off for one full day every week. So Sunday, I wake up with this thing next to me, it's off. I go to sleep. Monday morning, I turn on and it's been off for a whole day. You'd be amazed at how much you don't miss.
Yes. Yes.
Like social media is nearly a complete waste of time unless you're doing it strategically to grow your brand or your business or connect with someone or help somebody strategically. Most of the time, it just wastes your time.
Yeah. No, I've found that. I mean, I'm guilty of that quite often, and I've done better in the past few years, but it definitely is just a narcissism to it, this desire to be seen and heard, and maybe trying to fill the God-sized hole a bit. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So I saw this headline from the Babylon Bee last week, and it said, "Infinitely loved child of God stressing out about not getting enough likes on Instagram." And I thought they totally nailed it. Like you as you're listening to this, you are an amazing creature that God put on planet Earth to do something amazing with a set of gifts and personality traits that are so unique in the world. And most people are like, oh my gosh, I only got 4 likes. And God loves you abundantly, and you're worried about human being only clicking the like button 3 times.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's kind of interesting.
I love that snark, man. Going back to the military thing, though, I think it's really important because clearly, I mean, you were formed a certain way as you grew up because you become this hugely energetic person. Regardless of joining the military, you're going to be sort of crafted and sculpted when you get in there. But one thing that I learned, and I imagine you heard this a lot in boot camp, is when you go through boot camp and you go through the inspections that happen on a sometimes daily or weekly basis, is inevitably, most people don't know this if you haven't been in the service, but they make you stack your underwear or they make you make your bed a certain way. And then they do this inspection. And then they come in and tear everything apart and tell you how awful you did. Now, I didn't really get the point. For a long time, I thought, I don't understand why you just doing this to break me down. But my company commander said something potent to me, and I'm sure you heard the same thing. He said, how can we trust you? If you can't stack your underwear correctly, how can we trust you to manage a $50 million jet?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a Bible verse that says, he's been faithful in little things, will be entrusted with big things, And by the way, we do that everywhere. I mean, right now, I've got a client that I'm working with to launch a product, big product launch, probably $500,000 product launch. And we have a video editor who's flaky, Now, it just so happens that we're in the beginning of the project, and video editors aren't hard to find. So we're moving from one video editor to another video editor, not because the person didn't do good work, but because they weren't replying so much to our emails. And we just decided, like, if this is happening now in the beginning of our thing, it's going to happen a lot more later on. So I work with consultants a lot to teach them how to get more clients and make more money. And I always tell them, look, if your prospect is a PITA, which, Rob, that stands for pain in the posterior. If the person that you're about to do a deal with is all complainy and you haven't even started the deal yet. Like, I'll get on the phone sometimes with people and I'll say, so what other consultants or advisors have you worked with? And they're like, well, I work with this person and they're an idiot. And then I work with this person and they're an idiot. And then I work with this other person and they're an idiot too. I'm like, guess what? I'm about to be the 4th idiot in this list of people. You know what I mean? So my point is, people telegraph how they're going to treat you as a friend or a vendor or as a business partner well ahead of time. And yeah, I mean, if you are the kind of person who could be trusted, like I have this guy with this weekly prayer team. I have this guy on this weekly prayer team is one of the most faithful people I know. I'm talking about, like, dude is for 3 straight years, always there, right on time. I'm like, you know what? He's an executive at Penske, by the way. I'm like, that kid's going to work in the White House. He's going to do big things, because if you're so faithful in this small thing, you can like earn your way into big things. And yeah, the military does that. I don't fold my underwear anymore, but the military instills a attention to detail that is so important. And sadly, in the world now, not to make too many judgments about our culture, but in the world right now, where like everyone sort of gets a participation trophy for everything, you fail to realize that, you know, sometimes you need to go back, like, and do it again. You know, I mean, I have 2 boys who share a room, and they're like, Dad, I cleaned my room. I'm like, you didn't clean your room. They're like, yeah, we cleaned our room. I'm like, well, you might have cleaned it, but it's not clean. So go back and finish it. And like the idea of, you know, done is done. I always make a point when a new team member comes on to my team. I just said, just so you know, in our corporate culture, the word done means it's done and there's nothing else to do, right? So I'll ask somebody, I'll go, hey, could you post this up on Instagram? And they'll go, done. And I go, done like it's on Instagram, or done like you heard what I said and you're going to go do it? And they're like, well, done like I heard what you said. I said, well, don't say done unless it's actually done, you know?
Right.
So I mean, little things like that, but little feedback loops like that are really important for training kids, for training employees, for training team members, for training your customers sometimes. So I like that analogy about the underwear. I thought that's right.
Yeah. Well, I know we're so limited today. So let me ask you 2 more quick questions. What's the common theme in your life? You know, do you sort of suppose yourself to have a theme song?
Oh gosh. Remember the show, The Greatest American Hero?
Of course.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on it. So I was going for a walk yesterday, Rob, and I was remember Knight Rider?
Of course.
That would be another one of my theme songs. No. So there's 2 things that I want to do. This is the serious answer. So there's 2 things that I want to do simultaneously. I want to be an extraordinarily content person, you know? I think that modern personal development creates so much discontentment. And frankly, discontentment leads to apathy, which leads to discouragement. I mean, the way that people teach stuff, like if you follow like a fitness person on Instagram, it is all about what you don't do and all about what you don't know. And it creates this feeling that like, oh my, or if you follow like a mom on Instagram, it feels like everybody's life is so amazing and it's not, you know, and it feels like, trust me, man, I've been behind the scenes in like a lot of big businesses that a lot of people think, wow, if I only had a company like theirs. I'm like, yeah, you want an $8 million company? Well, guess what? That $8 million company spent $9 million last year. So they made it $1 million less than you did if you made 0, you know? So sometimes the grass isn't always greener, but I want to be a really content person and just be able to sit and enjoy every moment of every day. Right now, my 2-year-old is actually driving her little bike in front of my window. I just love those moments, like the moments of being able to sit in that while at the same time constantly getting better. So if you can marry those 2 things together, if you can be the kind of person who is content in every moment and so thankful for the things that you have, but use that gratitude to fuel improvement, oh man, you're going to be a really, really, really happy person who's going to get a lot done.
Yeah. So my last question, and you kind of touched on just a second ago, which is failures. You didn't say failures, but failures seem to be a huge teacher, right? Maybe the most powerful teacher because they remind us that we really dislike pain. What have you learned from your failures in your life so far?
Yeah, I'm gonna read a 2 sentences from the back. This is actually Appendix A of 21 Day Miracle, and it says failure. This is Appendix A, page 159. Failure is a gift. It's a precious indication that I veered off target. I choose then to see failure as a sign pointing to a much needed correction. For every 1 success, I've had 10 failures. Thank you, failure. Most entrepreneurs have failed. And so do missiles coming off of airplanes. If you've ever seen a missile correct, those are all little failures. They're going too far ahead. They're going too far behind. Missiles constantly making these micro corrections. Airplanes do that too. Even if you're in a United Boeing, 737, when they go up and set the autopilot, you'll actually see the yoke of the airplane and the throttles moving back. Just these little tiny movements, little tiny adjustments. And the airspeed, it looks like they're right at 37,000 feet, but they're really at 37,010 feet, minus 10 feet. The airplane is just constantly correcting to all the atmospheric changes. And that's life as an entrepreneur, man. Some of my biggest failures led me to my biggest successes because I needed a correction. I was saying it this way. Oh, you know what? You should probably say it this way. I was communicating it this way. I should say it this way. I was thinking this way. I should think this way. And that's true, by the way, for like marriage, family, business, health.
Yes.
Like the stuff that people were teaching even 10 years ago when it comes to fitness and the body, they're not teaching that now. Yeah. I realized when it came to the body and fitness and intake and food that I was very different than like for the last few years. Intermittent fasting, for example, has been like really popular. Skip breakfast, like eat lunch. And hey, that might work. That was not a good way to eat for me at all. In fact, it messed with my adrenal. Like I would get to about 11 and I would feel like, now I've fasted before. I fasted for 21 days before. Right. So I don't have any issue with fasting, but that approach, hey, that might have worked for the fitness guru dude that put it up on Instagram, but that was not. So I realized like even their body's different. Well, if I didn't find that out experientially, I wouldn't know, hey, great for you, but that's not for me, So just an understanding of the maturity to be able to move in and out of that can be really helpful too. And that's failure. Like if you didn't do it right the first time, that's failure. But you know what? Yeah. Leads you to your success, So
yeah. Wow, that is fantastic. I know we have to go. But ladies and gentlemen, my friend, the rock star, the superhero, Ed Rush. Thank you so much.
Rob, you're awesome, dude. And by the way, the name underneath mine says Ed Rush, and the name underneath yours says Rockstar Rob. So you're the real rock star. By the way, I mentioned the book. If you want to get the best deal on the book, go to Ed. My website is edrushbook.com. It's just edrushbook.com. And for your folks, Rob, I prepared a whole site with a bunch of training videos and downloads that's totally free. Usually I would sell that stuff, but they can get it for free if they go there from your show to edrushbook.com. Thanks, man.
Thank you, buddy. Take care of yourself. God bless you well.